He testified against the wrong man. A man that has no business being in court that faithful day. His testimony changed the trajectory of a homeless man's small existence. A jail term for a crime he knew nothing about. His only crime was being at the wrong place at the wrong time. That's the story of Daniel Reeves. A 5th grade high school teacher. Daniel taught he was a valid witness, that what he saw was the truth, until the truth came knocking. Welcome to Deadend Stories, where real crimes don't just end in death. They end in the kind of silence that follows you home. The courtroom had felt airtight that day, like truth itself had walls. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead like judgment. The jury watched with rapt attention, eyes fixed on Daniel Reeves as he pointed across the room with a steady hand. "That's him," he said. No hesitation. No doubt. Just certainty sharpened by grief. The man at the defense table didn't flinch. He just watched Daniel with an expression that would come back years later to haunt him in ways unimagined. Daniel couldn't yet understand how the accused could stay calm, collected. Like someone observing a storm he knew would pass. The verdict came quickly. Guilty, justice, they called it. Daniel went home that night to a quiet house and a louder mind. He told himself he'd done the right thing. Repeated it to himself like a prayer until it started to sound like truth. Then life moved on. Or at least, he thought it did. Years later, it started with a grainy footage. Something small. So small it shouldn't have mattered. A reenactments. Narration thick with suspense. The memory came back wrong. Not at once, nor was it necessarily dramatically. Just a flicker. A late night, with a half-empty glass of beer on the table. A documentary was playing in the background on his 45-inch TV set. One of those crime series he tends to aviate but couldn't bring himself to turn off this time around out of exhaustion. The documentary reflected a serial and horrific event, the act though in a different location, different case, but there was something similar about the case, compounded by the conscious manner the killer adjusted his watch before walking away from the crime scene. Right wrist. Daniel froze. Staring at the set. Wondering if this could be possible. Daniel could remember vividly that the man he testified against had worn his watch on his left. At least, that's what he had told himself. Free. What he had sworn under oath. What he had built an entire man's fate on. Daniel sat up slowly, his pulse beginning to crawl up his throat. His mind replayed the night of the murder like a corrupted file. It glitched, stuttering, as if rewriting itself. It featured the rain falling down like judgment. Streetlights and neon signs reflecting in the dark. Footsteps, a figure turning. A flash of metal. And then the details shifted. Similar stature but wasn't too sure about the highly. The watch, same watch but wrong wrist. Or was it the wrong man? No, Daniel whispered, shaking his head. No, that's not. But memory doesn't argue. It mutates. He started digging. Checking old photos. Court transcripts. Evidence files he had forced himself to forget. Each piece felt heavier than the last, like lifting stones off a grave he had buried himself. And the more he looked, the less certain everything became. Witness statements that didn't quite align. Timelines that bent under scrutiny. His own words, too confident, too clean. But now, he had filled in gaps without realizing it. His brain had stitched together a story that made sense, because it needed to. Because the alternative was chaos. Because uncertainty is unbearable. But truth? Truth is worse. The first message came without warning. No number. No name. Just a single line. Your vision is getting clearer now. Daniel stared at his phone, his reflection faintly visible on the dark screen, eyes wider than they should be, like a man seeing himself for the first time. His fingers hovered, then typed back. Who is this? The reply came instantly. Why did it take you this long? A cold realization settled into his bones. This wasn't random. This wasn't a prank. Whoever sent that message knew. Not just about the case. About him. About his error that has put an innocent man behind bars. Sleep abandoned him after that. Every creak in the house sounded intentional. Every passing car slowed just a little too long outside. And the memories, they didn't just return. They evolved. Now he saw the face more clearly, the real face. Not the one he pointed at in court. No. Another man. Taller. Quieter. The kind of presence you don't notice until it's already gone. And the eyes. Watching. Always watching. Daniel went back to the courthouse. This atmosphere felt suffocating. Everything felt different, like walking through a place where something terrible had just happened, even if no one else could see it. He requested the files, the need to reopen the case. But the system pushed back. The case is closed, they told him. Appeals exhausted with appropriate sentence carried out. Carried out. The words hit like a verdict all over again. Not just convicted. Executed. Daniel's breath caught. This wasn't just a mistake anymore. It was irreversible. Undoing it wouldn't bring justice. It would expose it as a lie. And destroy every person who had believed in it. Including him. The second message came that night. A photo. Daniel opened it with trembling hands. It was his house. Taken from across the street. Lights on. Curtains half drawn. A perfect angle. You should have let it stay buried. His chest tightened. You killed him, Daniel typed, his fingers shaking. You let me send an innocent man to death. 3 dots appeared. Paused. Disappeared. Then. No, you did that. The truth didn't arrive like a revelation. It came like a trap closing. The killer hadn't just escaped. He had watched. Watched Daniel testify. Watched the trial. Watched justice take the wrong man. And he had let it happen. Because it was perfect. Because it meant he didn't have to run. Didn't have to hide. The system had done his work for him. And now the only person who could undo it was the same person who made it happen. Daniel started recording everything. Video logs. Confessions. Evidence. If anything happened to him, the truth needed to be told. But every step forward felt like digging his own grave. Because the closer he got to exposing the truth, the closer the killer got to him. The final message came just before dawn. No words this time. Just a location. Pinned. Waiting. Daniel stood at the edge of it, a deserted overpass, wind slicing through the silence. Below, the city moved like nothing had changed. Because for everyone else, nothing had. Footsteps echoed behind him. Slow. Measured. But familiar. Daniel didn't turn. I remember now, he said, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. A pause. Then a voice from the dark. I know. Daniel closed his eyes. Why me? A soft chuckle. Because you needed it to be someone. And I needed it to be anyone else. The simplicity of it was unbearable. Not rage. Not revenge. Just convenience. When Daniel finally turned, the face matched the memory. Perfectly. But too late. Already too late. They found Daniel's recording days later. His confession. His proof. His apology. But without the killer, it wasn't enough. Doubt spread, but certainty held. The system resisted. Because admitting the truth would mean unraveling everything. And systems aren't built to admit they're wrong. They're built to survive. Officially, nothing changed. The case remained closed. Justice remained served. And Daniel Reeves became just another unreliable witness. A man who remembered too late. Or worse. A man who couldn't live with what he'd done. And somewhere, in another city, another quiet and lonely street, a tall man adjusted his watch, right wrist, while walking down the road with a glistering cane in hand. The most dangerous lies aren't the ones you're told, they're the ones you swear are true. The ones you are willing to vouch for. If this story resonates with you, let's have your thoughts on the comments section. We will also appreciate if you tell us where you are watching from. This enables us to appreciate the magnitude of our viewing public. Subscribe to Deadend Stories for more thrilling and exciting crime stories.